First, I am a Japanese nun. I am living in the Ishinji temple in front of the big Japanese temples. And this is belong to the Nichiren sect. And I'm familiar with the Lotus Sutra. That's why today I would like to introduce about the Lotus Sutra's theory. When we consider about women's enlightenment, first we have to know about women's impossibility in the Ali and Abhidharma text. And after we understand this background affected in the ancient Indian patriarchal societies, we can understand the background of the Lotus Sutra. Especially the story of the Dragon King's daughters, which appears in the Devadatta chapter of the Lotus Sutra, Saddharma Pundalika Sutra, that corresponds to chapter 12 of its Chinese version by Kumarajiva, is well known as depicted an 8-year-old daughter of the Naga Dragon King Sagala, who never swerving from the path of enlightenment, manifests herself as a male bodhisattva to attain Buddhahood. In this presentation, I shall focus on the bodhisattva's concept in the Lotus Sutra through analysis the story of the Dragon King daughters. To begin with, let us note the status of women in the early text. According to the Majjhima Nikaya 115 Bahudataka Sutta, 5 impossibilities there. Firstly, female Buddha. Secondly, female field-turned king, Chakrabarti. Thirdly, female Saka. Fourth, female Malas. Fifth, female Brahma. When evaluating the implications of these impossibilities, it needs to be kept in mind that in a patriarchal society like ancient India, the idea of a female field-turning king would have been unthinkable. Similarly, it would have been out of the question for ancient Indians to conceive that a female Saka, a female heavenly king, or female Brahma could be residing in their respective heavenly world. The same reasoning would also apply to Mala, who, according to the Pali commentary tradition, occupied a position similar to a king or prince in the highest heaven of the sense-bearers realm. The point behind the above-mentioned impossibility is that women cannot fulfill these functions in the present, so she could become any of these in the future. As long as she is a female, she cannot perform the function of any of these rulers, since to assume these leadership positions would, from the perspective of ancient India patriarchal society, require being a male. This would also explain why Buddhist tradition holds that someone about to become a Buddha will not take birth as a woman. To do so, at least in a patriarchal society like ancient India, would make it more difficult to successfully execute the role of being a Buddha, as people would have less respect for female teachers. According to the Abhidharma Kosha, in the Abhidharma Buddhism, it is mentioned about condition of bodhisattva. It is mentioned about, first, gods and human like born in good destiny, Sugati. Secondly, born from the Kshatriya Brahma, Kulajat. Thirdly, endured good faculties. And fourth, man. Fifth, think about previous life, Jat Samarati. Sixth, attain enlightenment without striding back, Abhivartika. So next, let us consider about the story of the Lotus Sutra. In the Devadatta chapter of the Lotus Sutra, Venerable Shariputra said as follows. Then the Venerable Shariputra said to that daughter of Sagala, the Naga king, thou hast conceived the idea of enlightenment, young lady of good family, without striding back, and earth gifted with immense wisdom, but perfect enlightenment is not easily won. It may happen, sister, that women display an unflagging energy, perform good works for many thousands of eons, and fulfill the 6 perfect virtue paramita, but as yet there is no example of her having reached Buddhaship. And that's because women cannot occupy the 5 ranks. For example, firstly, the rank of Brahman, Secondly, the rank of Indra. Thirdly, the rank of chief guardian of the four quarters. Fourth, the rank of Chakrabarti. Fifth, the rank of Bodhisattva, incapable of sliding back. According to this statement, the Shastra tells about foreign 5 rank women cannot take place. First, the rank of Brahma, Brahmastana. Second is the rank of Indra, Shaklastana. Third is the rank of the chief guardians of the four quarters, Maharajastana. Fourth, the rank of Chakrabarti. Fifth, the rank of Bodhisattva incapable of sliding back, Abhivartika Bodhisattva Sthana. There is no question that Shastra is a representative of the Abhidharma Buddhism, as we already seen before, because we can pay attention to the fifth, the rank of the Bodhisattva incapable of sliding back. It suggested that women's body is impure and not fit receptacle for Buddhahood. In ancient India, women were considered inferior and incapable of attaining enlightenment. Next, let us now turn to consider about the figure of this Lotus Sutra story. Dragon King's daughter is 8 years old, and dragon, not human beings. As you know, we are living in the endless circle of transmigration in the 6 postured world, hells, heavenly gods, beasts, asura, humans, and heavenly beings. So there's no question dragon belong to beasts, animals. So Lotus Sutra shows us she is 8 years old, very young, and she is female, not male, and she is not human, but animals, very low status in the society. Manjushri answered, in the bosom of the sea, I have expounded the lotus of the true law, and no other sutra. Prajnakuta said, that sutra is profound, subtle, difficult to seize, no other sutra equal it. Is there any creature able to understand this jewel of sutra, or to arrive at supreme perfect enlightenment? Manjushri Bodhisattva replied, there is a young man of good family, the daughter of Sagala, the Naga king, 8 years old, very intelligent, of keen faculty, endures with prudence in active body, speech, and mind, who has caught and kept all the teaching in substance and form of the Tathagat, who was acquired in one moment as 1,000 meditation and proofs of the essence of all laws. She does not swerve from the idea of enlightenment. Its great aspiration applies to other beings the same measures as to herself. She is up to display all virtue and is never deficient in them. With a broad smile on the face and in the bloom of any extremely handsome appearance, she speaks words of kindliness and compassion. She is fit to arrive at supreme perfect enlightenment. The Bodhisattva Prajakuta said, I have seen how the Lord Shakyamuni, the Tathagata, when he was striving after enlightenment in the state of Bodhisattva, performed immeasurable good works, and during many eons never slacked in his arduous task in the 4 universes. There is not a single spot to smell as a master's seat where he has not surrendered his body for the sake of creatures. Afterwards, he arrived at enlightenment. Who then would believe that she should have been able to arrive at supreme perfect knowledge in one moment? The highly important point to note here is that the daughter of Sagala, the Naga king, 8 years old, seeking attain enlightenment. The dragon king's daughter appears and then attains Buddhahood to the amazement of the assembly. In ancient India, as I explained, women were considered inferior and incapable of attaining enlightenment. Shakyamuni teaches differently in the Lotus Sutra. He makes it clear that all living beings, old and young, male and female, human and non-human, are potential Buddhas. The enlightenment of the Dragon King's daughter also illustrates the concept of attaining Buddhahood in this lifetime. It shows that ordinary people have the lifetime. However, it is important to understand that this attainment of enlightenment requires effort on our part. We must practice and apply the principles of Buddhism to our lives in order to attain enlightenment. And continue. At the same instant, behold the sight of the forward and of the senior priest Saripatra, the female sex of the daughter of Sagara, the Naga king disappears, the male sex appears, and she manifests herself as a bodhisattva, who immediately went to a south to sit down at the foot of the tree made of 7 precious substances in the world, Vimala, where he showed himself enlightened and pleasing the Lord, while filling all direction of space with the radiance of the 32 characteristic signs and all secondary marks. All beings in the Saha world beheld that Lord while he received the homage of all gods, nagas, goblins, Gandharva, demons, Garudas, Kinara, great serpents, men and beings not human, and was engaged in preaching the law. And the beings who heard the preaching of the Tathagata became incapable of sliding back in supreme perfect enlightenment. In that word, Bimala and this Saha word shook in 6 different ways. 3,000 living beings from the congregation circle of the Lord Shakyamuni gained the acquaintance in the eternal love, whereas 300,000 beings obtained the prediction of their further destiny to supreme perfect enlightenment.
Please sum up. Kindly sum up, please.
Okay. Yes, sorry. So, just give me 1 minute. And the next preacher's Dharmabanaka chapter also mentioned about what is called Mahasattva Bodhisattva. This is mentioned about in the assembly, the many gods, nagas, gambling, Gandharva demons, Garuda, Kinala, great serpents, man and being, not human, monks, nuns, male and female, lay devotee, votary of the Bhikkhu disciple, Shabakayana, votary of the Bhikkhu of Prateka Buddhas, Prateka Buddhayana, and those of the Bhikkhu of Bodhisattvayana, who have heard this Dhammapariyaya from the mouth of the Tathagata. I do Lord, I do Sigata, the Lord pleases, whereby Shajalaja, all those Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, who in this assembly have heard, were it but a single stanza, a single verses, or who even by a single lacing, so have joyful accepted this sutra. To all of them, by Shajalaja, among the 4 classes of my audience, I predicate their destiny to supreme and perfect enlightenment. It is most important to point that the concept of bodhisattva, everyone present, women and dragons who listen to this sutra and have joyfully accepted this sutra. So, according to the Lotus Sutra, everyone is equal. So, it is proclaimed the Eka Buddhayana.
Yes, with regards to the issue of women and the Bodhisattva path, and whether a woman can enter into the Bodhisattva path or not. In the first presentation, various aspects of the polytext were conveyed. I'd like to add something to that. In the polytext canon, in the Teri Apadana, there's the text, the Yasodhara Teri Apadana. This is canonical in the polytext. This is with regards to the first presentation. So in the Yasodhara Teri Apadana, Yasodhara at the time of Dipankara Buddha was known by the name Sumedha, and then the Bodhisattva was known by the name Sumedha. In the canonical Pali text Teri Apadana, Yasodhara then also, as Sumedha, receives a prediction to Sambodhi from the Buddha Dipankara. She receives a prediction to Sambodhi from the Buddha Dipankara. According to the classical Theravada Pali text exegesis, having received that prediction to Sambodhi from the Buddha Dipankara, she has entered into the Sawaka Bodhisattva path. So in the Pali text commentarial tradition, then there's the recognition of 3 bodhisattva paths. The Sāvaka bodhisattva path, resulting in becoming a Sāvaka Buddha Arahanta. Then the Pacceka bodhisattva path, resulting in becoming a Pacceka Arahanta Buddha. And then the Samma Sambuddha's path, from Bodhisattva to becoming a Samma Sambuddha. So in the canonical Pali text Teri Apadana, the Yasodhara Teri Apadana, she, Sumeta, receives a prediction from the Buddha Dipankara of her Sambodhi. At that point she enters into the Sāvaka Bodhisattva path, which she fulfills in her final life as Yasodhara, becoming a Sāvaka Buddha Arahanta. So I'd just like to add that into the discussion because it wasn't mentioned in the first presentation, and it seems important to consider. Otherwise, we might say in all 3 vehicles, or at least in the Theravada tradition, that it's not possible for a woman to become a bodhisattva. But in the Pali text canon, in fact, in the Yasodhara Teri Apadana, we find explicitly, specifically, an example of exactly this, and then finding her fulfillment. Also, I think it's important to mention in the Tathagat related to the Bhikkhuni Arahanta, one of the 2 foremost Bhikkhuni leaders of the Sangha, praised by the Buddha for being foremost in spiritual power. It's recorded that she transformed herself then into a Chakravati king, a Chakravati Raja, in the male form. She's already an Arahanta, already a Sāvaka Buddha at that point, already, and with her supreme spiritual power, for which she was praised by the Buddha. Then she transforms herself into the male form, but she doesn't stay there. She doesn't do so to become a Buddha. She's already a Sāvaka Buddha, Arahanta. She transforms herself just to show that she has the spiritual power to do so and to honor and revere the Buddha. And then she transforms herself back. So this is actually very unique and interesting in comparison to the story of the dragon girl in the Lotus Sutra. Because the dragon girl, she transforms herself into the male gender in order to become a Buddha. But in the Pali text, canonical tradition, a woman who is already a Buddha, a Sāvaka, Arahant Buddha, in the female form, has the power to transform herself into the male gender, but she doesn't stay there. She transforms herself back. Yes? So this is very interesting and very special, and I felt worthy of highlighting in the Pali text tradition these 2 cases to clarify about the path of the Bodhisattva and the path of the Arahanta Sāvaka Buddha. Sadhu. Namo Buddhaya.
Would you like...